Allison, how's it going?
Good. How are you? How are
I'm
you,
good.
Darian?
I'm good. Very good. Thanks for being on. A fellow podcaster, right? You also podcast.
Yes, I have a podcast called Integrate Yourself.
How did you come up with that?
Well, I originally started the show with a co-host, and her and I would talk about how we'd notice all the people in our industry, both in the emotional coaching industry, the fitness industry, holistic health industry. They would talk about a lot of things, they would think about a lot of things, but we had yet to see people actually integrate it. So what I wanted to do was present some aspects of that for people. And so we thought, hey, how about integrate yourself? Because everybody's really we're all like doing that anyway. So let's put the theme of the show, how to integrate all this information that you're picking up, and just also have some discernment between what might be right for you and what might not. So that's how we came up with it.
So, what have you learned about the integration since you've done your podcast? I mean, you've done a decent amount of episodes, right? So, I mean, what have
Yeah.
you surmised from doing this?
Yeah. So I'm on episode 140. So I've been doing it for a while. Um, yeah. And I just, can you repeat the question one more time? Because I just slipped out of that.
Okay. That happens to me too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get on podcasts and somebody asks me a question, I'm going on, I'm like, what the hell am I talking about?
I
Like,
know it happens. It happens more frequently than I'd like to admit, but yeah.
same here. I'm feeling you on this. I'm like, whoa, what just happened? But basically, like, what have you surmised about integration since
Oh,
you've been
yes.
doing 140 plus episodes? Any large thoughts you've had about all this since doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of thoughts about that, and what one thing that I did, because I had thought, wow, this is people really need a lot of help with this aspect of it, because we go to these retreats or we have these experiences in health and fitness or spirituality, and then
Mhm.
we don't know how to then bring it into our everyday lives and how to integrate that aspect, that practicality aspect of it. And so that was a big reason I decided to write my book, Finally Thriving, because I wanted to help people by giving them some very simple tools that they could easily work into their day and create a practice of integration for that. So I just found it to be a big problem, especially in this day and age where we have all this information coming at us from now so much on social media. We have, the internet is, we have all the information at our fingertips, yet we aren't using the information and we don't know how to discern between the information so much. So that was where I thought people needed most of the help. There was the discernment behind that, as well as how to create a practice of integration in your daily life. Because what we do 90% of the time is what becomes who we are, and it becomes our future. So starting to learn how to focus your energy into what you really want to create, rather than the things you don't want to create, which we tend to focus on mostly, really shifts someone into being able to now that integration aspect is totally doable, because you're practicing a little bit every day.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What do you see in terms of, you're talking about kind of these emotional journeys, mental health? Why do you think that's become a more prominent aspect of our business as we've moved along on this?
Yeah, it is becoming more prominent, and I believe it's because many trainers, many people in fitness are seeing it both happen within themselves and with their clients.
Hmm.
I remember the first time I started, I got into Paul Chek's work early on, if you're
Yeah,
familiar with him,
I am.
and he taught me about the work in exercises, which he talks about in his book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And some of those exercises are all of them are geared towards specific chakra energy centers in the body. And movement in itself is, just a basic squat or hip lift can really get that basic chakra activated. It can activate, it can move emotions through. So the emotions we hold in those areas of our bodies get moved when we do our movement, when we really any kind of movement can be a catalyst for this. But sometimes people don't know what to do with it. So I started seeing this in my clients where they just start crying after doing a basic hip lift because they were moving energy through that they hadn't been moving before. And so, an emotion is just energy in motion, basically. That's what it translates into. So we are meant to move those emotions through our body, but yet a lot of it gets stuck in the body. And then that's where we find the restriction in the body and or holding that tension because we're trying to contain it somehow. So the movement itself, I think many people in the fitness industry, as we've evolved, have started seeing this in their practice. And then somatic therapy has also gotten into the mix. Embodiment stuff is also in there. So we're starting to see a lot of different aspects of how people can therapeutically move these emotions through with just simple movements. And it's within our own body's technology, which I think is super fascinating that we have access to all this. It's just that we haven't been taught that. So
Speaking of being taught that, so do you feel that kind of the health and wellness professional or fitness professional is not prepared adequately to meet the demands of the more emotional, social, spiritual aspects of our profession that are kind of pouring out into some different reasons why people are exercising now? We've gotten a lot of reports that people are exercising for mental, social, spiritual reasons, not necessarily for the physical aspects of things, which is what was been pounded into our heads forever.
yeah, right. Well, I think we've shifted gears quite heavily this past couple of years,
Yeah.
and so I believe that people are now needing that kind of thing more than ever, because we were in a very stagnant place, in a very still place for some time, and some people felt like that they didn't do too well with that. And so there's that aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that exercise in itself used to be a gateway into the deeper aspects of your life. So you get your fitness tuned in, you get your food tuned in, and then that actually brings you into a much healthier perspective to bring in the more spiritual and deeper exploration for your life. And that was kind of the icing on the cake for a lot of people. Some people would just stop at the fitness and the
Yeah.
nutrition, but now I believe people are seeing how much this is needed in their lives, and they're like, oh, this is not a choice anymore. I mean, it is always a choice, but they're just, it's necessary. It's more necessary now than I feel like it used to be. And so there's that side of it too. But the gym, itself, and that environment is not is limited in the capacity where you can't really go very far with that kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
believe that's why a lot of fitness trainers are creating other environments for that kind of thing, kind of like what Paul Chek is doing
Mhm.
and some of his students. And so they're creating more sacred ceremonial places and retreats for people to then explore that part of themselves, and then creating groups outside of that. So, like on Zoom or something, so that people can continue to integrate that information. And that's really what I wanted to do too. I wanted to offer people some behind the scenes work, because we were all, we have so many things we can do that we don't, that's not a problem,
Yeah.
podcasting content is not, it's not a problem to find content. Like, you can get as much as you want, but the issue becomes, what information are you going to use, how are you going to use it, how's it going to become part of you, how are you going to bring these aspects into the whole. And so the book itself was just a lot of the behind the scenes work for wellness and growing that way from a wellness perspective, but also thriving in a way that you are also acknowledging all these aspects of yourself, your mind, your mindset, your physical and your spiritual. So your intuition and that kind of thing, and how to really, giving people the tools they can do to focus in on really and and create the body they want, create the life they want, be able to do the things they really want to, not out of obligation, but out of joy, So
Yeah. It's interesting. It feels like we're moving towards this more whole care, seeing a person as the whole person, and that. And I think this is kind of crossing other industries too, but like I'm a person, which means that there's a lot to me, not just my physical being for that. But I think it's interesting, when I was in college in like the 90s, we were actually talking about this, the wellness wheel and the hope, but it feels like it's taking a really long time for people to admit that we're more than just our physical selves for that. Why the
yeah,
delay? Like,
I know, because we've known this for
this is not
forever,
new
right? I mean,
stuff.
it's
Like,
not new stuff,
no.
exactly. But I think that, yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know what the problem is. I can guess that, um, some of us just aren't going out there and talking about it that way because we've been taught that that's not really acceptable. And,
Mm,
we're in the physical, we have to prove and defend before we believe something,
mm.
and there's that also mindset. And that's not even how science works. Science is like an exploration. Like, you don't know,
Right.
it's like going into the unknown. So I'm not really sure where we pick that up,
Yeah.
when you're closed off in your way of thinking, which I think we have been for some time, and we've been
Yeah.
in a very limited mindset, but that's just where we were energetically.
Yeah.
And I even think there's some merit to where we are right now, maybe even astrologically, and maybe, and there's also some merit to the Earth's frequency changing. So there's the Schumann resonance, which we are also, with our bodies and our frequency, are recalibrating to as well. So there's definitely some energy shifts going on. We can't like deny. So I
Yeah.
think what that does is also changes your consciousness. So then you become aware of more things. Your perspective changes, especially since we had the experience we did, with being locked down and stuff.
Mhm.
It totally changed people's perspective. And when that
Right.
happens, then you do have a consciousness shift, and then you want to, now maybe you want to, focus on other things, or you want to clean up your consciousness in some ways. So I believe that could be part of it. And we were very comfortable before in our 3D reality and how
Yeah.
things were going. And we were in the very much of the physical, and we're just going into a different age where now we can also connect with the energetic pretty more than we could before. I think we're aware of a lot more. So that's how I see it, and it's in a way, it is in a way an evolution
Yeah.
of ourselves here, because we're, it your consciousness is unlimited. And so when we start realizing that, it's like the sky's the limit,
True.
so yeah.
I'm actually doing a huge series on consciousness, like different forms of consciousness in the fall or so. And I feel like the fitness professional is just woefully underprepared for this version of reality that we're
Yeah,
experiencing, because
yeah,
especially formalized education is nowhere near this. It's all clinical or
I
clinician based
know.
stuff,
Yeah.
which is not bad. That's good stuff. That's a limb of our industry, a branch, which is important, but like, it's not the only thing. I mean, it's like, we're just not the exercise professional of the future, to me, is way different than it currently is now. So
I agree.
if you're crafting this, all right, we're doing this right now. You're crafting the exercise professional of the future as this continues to evolve. What must this person learn in order to meet the demands of the consumer they're working with?
Yeah, that I believe that person really needs to clean up their own, like work on themselves, focus on
Yes.
themselves,
Yes. I'm actually presenting on this idea in July. It's about elevating your career through compassionate coaching practices. And
Yeah.
a big part of the presentation is, as fitness professionals, you need to work on yourself first. You're
Hmm.
going in there trying to clean up someone else's life, when yours is a mess.
Oh yeah.
Like, you need to
Yeah.
work on the self for, anyways.
Well,
Yes.
otherwise it just becomes a codependent relationship, right? I mean, that's
Exactly.
just,
Right.
and so yeah, to be a very effective coach, your guide, it's like you're guiding this person, but you're not getting your needs met through that person. Ideally, if that's happening, if you're getting your needs met through that person, then that's something to think about and maybe go back and say, okay, what do I need to work on here? um around this topic, and so that's another reason I wrote the book. It was because a lot of coaches, we're sacrificing, we're giving, and then we rarely think about how we receive, and our relationship with ourselves, because we're always focused on other people's
Yeah.
relationships with themselves, but like, how is your relationship with yourself? And I'm finding too that many coaches are starting to go in that direction. And I
Yeah.
think that is beautiful. It's going to probably involve sound and music too. I'm seeing a lot of people, including myself, starting to use voice, sound, music to help their clients as well, and bringing that into the mix with movement. So I think it's going to be evolving past that kind of CrossFit
Yeah.
competitiveness, because I really didn't like the direction for a while that it was going in with the boot camp
Yeah.
military kind of
I agree.
approach.
Yeah.
It's good for some people, but I think for the most part, and especially from my experience training many women, they just weren't resonating with that. So I find that it's better when you can help someone find the joy in the process of getting into a wellness routine that really works for them. So they are the creators of that as well. So as a coach, you're guiding them. I thought, like, years ago, I would tell people what I thought works for me, what I thought would work for them. And that never worked because they weren't owning their
Yeah.
experience of what they really enjoyed doing. And so now it's like, what do you want? What do you want to be doing? What would you like to feel like? What would you like for your body to look like? What activities do you want to be doing as it relates to wellness? Like, what is their dream? And so I think it's
Yeah.
important to help them, first of all, acknowledge that, and then teach them how to manifest that as well.
Yeah. I actually think our profession is much more complex than we initially thought it was going to be. I
Yes.
think we thought we're just on the beach lifting heavy weights and hanging out. And the genesis of our profession, I think, just never saw where it actually will be going. And it's almost a profession that, especially in formalized, you need a lot of education, like way more than you have. That is way encompassing so much of what you're doing. It's you need to have therapy, you need to have basic counseling skills. I mean, you need to understand
Yes.
spirituality, mental health. You need to have intrapersonal communication skills. You need to have coping strategy mechanisms. Like, it's a lot more than what is being offered. I think, and it's
Oh,
almost
absolutely.
spirit. It's ceremonial, as you mentioned. I totally am in that. It's a rite of passage.
Yes.
It's setting the stage, and I think we're just nowhere near what needs to be done to meet that need. You know.
Yeah, yeah, because I think that for whatever reason, the fitness industry just started focusing in on more of the clinical kind of stuff,
Yeah.
which it's not like, it's great
Yeah.
information, but there has to be some kind of a good balance or harmony between that and, like you're saying, the spiritual aspect, the
Yeah.
emotional aspect. I just feel like they do address it, but it's like in so many different segments. It's like,
Yeah.
how does it all work together?
Yeah.
Like, because that's what people need to know, and then help them, learn how that works for themselves, like, what's their unique way of experiencing this, and help them do that. But yeah, I think we just got off track with wanting to know everything or try to know everything, and then you can't know everything. But
No.
that's that proving and defending way of being. And so once you get out of that and you step into your imagination, your childlike curiosity,
Yeah.
your openness to know what you don't know, or to not know anything, like a child does, then you can be open to all kinds of possibilities and healing within that. So that's where I think we're going with it. We had to kind of go from one extreme to get to the other, so to that middle ground. So Yeah, I didn't like that either. And
Yeah.
it really turned me off just because it felt so like boring and heavy and dense. And although there were aspects of it that were really helpful, I just found that like there was nothing that connected me with the information.
Yeah.
So it lost me a lot of times. And even though I have a background in corrective exercise and I understand all that stuff, I'm really good at it. It's just boring sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So I like to bring in, like, I started reading, uh, what's her name? Now I can't remember her name. It'll come to me. But there's a book called Heal Your Body, and you know, it goes through the areas of the spine and correlates emotions and all kinds. It's an old book, but it's still very valid to this day. Like it's great to use to look at, like, see what's coming up for you in each area of your spine. Like, you know, what are you dealing with on an emotional level? Like, because this is all relevant, you know, it's but we discounted it pretty heavily in the past, but I
Yeah.
think now we're realizing, wow, this is really powerful, you know, and this
Yeah.
is an amazing healing tool. It doesn't have to be really complex. It's just, hey, let's let this motion move through here. Can we release this? Can we surrender and let go here? And that's a huge part of it right there, you know?
I think it's kind of like we have spent so much time on the hardcore science of origin, insertion, study of how the body moves, exercise physiology, hormones, all that stuff. It's all good. It's all, I'm not saying that's not good, but we have completely dismissed the other things as kind of woo woo.
Yeah.
These are spiritual stuff. Why do you need that? But I really believe people are wired that way and that they've just been told they're not supposed to be into
Yeah.
that, and especially in physical activity. But and now it's like people are like, why haven't you met this need for us for that? It's the story is incomplete,
Yeah.
like woefully incomplete to me for that.
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of people, you know, some people don't, there's not as many religions
Mhm.
anymore that are prominent in our society. And then we have, you know, we're looking everywhere for answers, but we forget that the answers are all within each person. It's all within each of us. And so that's why it's so fundamental to get back to prioritizing time with yourself. Can you be alone with yourself?
Yeah,
Can you be comfortable there in that place? Can you of coming back home to yourself? Do you have a practice of that? That's a great place to start.
yeah,
You know, maybe just laying on the floor for 10 minutes and doing nothing. I mean, it could be as simple as that.
right.
It could be a walk outside in nature. It could be a meditation. You know, how comfortable are you setting aside and prioritizing that time for yourself so you can really hear what the messages that are coming from you, because that's where the answers come from.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of if we're tapped into it or not. Are we listening? Do we know how to listen? Doing how to breathe properly, doing how to get still and be present. Like that pure presence is
yeah.
really where it's at, you know?
I wonder what, as okay, let's say some of our larger entities in our business, whatever it's a certification organizations, media companies, what could they be doing better? And I see they meaning us because we're part of it. And the whole thing. What could we be doing better to have better messages and better messengers for what we're discussing? Kind of a more well-rounded professional.
Meaning you're saying like businesses and
Yeah.
corporations?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't that is such a good question. There's so many places to start with that. I would, you know, say uh with the bigger companies, like finding integrity within
Mm,
there needs to be some integrity there
mm,
that I'm not seeing, you know,
love
and
that.
and
Call it out, Allison.
so as long as people and you know, companies can hide behind a company because they're not an individual, so it's
Yeah.
there's that, like, oh well, it's not me, it's the company, you know. And well, that's BS, because you know, it's
Mm,
like everybody has, you know, everybody's involved. It's a collective of people that are running a company. And you know, it's up to that company to have a collective energy of integrity within it. So somebody's got to show it, the leaders, ideally the role models in that company would be the first to do that. But maybe getting to the CEOs, and helping them understand what it means to really live a life that way of reverence for yourself, your health, that translates into other people. And then, you can bring in all the separation within yourself together. And that's what true integrity is like you're living by your values, you're doing the things you say you're going to do, you're being honest with yourself. um I don't see that in a lot of our leadership in both politics and in corporations right now.
Yeah.
So um I say, if and there's no way we can make people do that in those situations. Really, the only thing we can do is just start with ourselves. So if you start to work on yourself, that's actually pretty powerful because again, if you believe in the oneness aspect that we talk about in spirituality, if you're changing things within yourself, that translates into other people changing themselves too. And so that I think it would be the most powerful tool is you finding integrity, knowing what that looks and feels like, and then you're going to be less likely to either support a company that's not showing signs of integrity, that's along with your value system, or you would also just you wouldn't first support that, and then you would also go by your own authority in a way, so you wouldn't get pulled into that kind of influence. So those are two powerful ways that we can just start to begin with ourselves. And we have, that's a lot of power there in itself. There's sometimes we can't change anybody else. So we really can't actually.
Sure.
We can only just change things within ourselves. And then, that's all you can do. And it's not a it's pretty powerful. It's not like a small thing, So I think that is where I would start with
Yeah.
people. I don't Yeah, I've been thinking about the companies and how some of the things they're doing for years, and it doesn't seem to change. They just change names. They change
Mhm.
company names because no one wants to take responsibility for
Yeah.
what was happening. And so the best thing that people can do is just start to take responsibility for themselves and own their own experience of their life. And then who knows what could happen then.
So on this is all right. I have to think about how I want to say this. I'd like to have thoughtful responses. I don't just like blowing stuff out of nowhere, like, I think, I learned that in my education and having thoughtful responses and things. But what is the responsibility you think, maybe a lot, maybe none, in your mind, for the individual health and wellness professional to maybe, how do I say it, maybe be critical or be have a voice towards things that are clearly not right
Mm,
that you see? Let's say someone says, so this is a big thing for me. If like someone says, hey, these are the 3 best exercises, and you like know in your mind, okay, that no, like, is it your responsibility to say something about that or just to let that go? Or how do you navigate that?
well, if it's somebody that you're working with that's hiring you to do a job, to help them, you're guiding them, then you now have the authority to help, to interject into that. But if someone who you generally, I don't give people information or advice unless they ask me.
Mhm.
And so I go by that rule. And then if they're paying me, then, I'm also giving them advice and guidance, of course. But other than that, if someone feels like that's the right exercises, or those are the right exercises for them, or they want to recommend that to people, that's their thing. It's we're not always going to agree on everything. And honestly, there's so many different things and ways to go about everything. And I appreciate it all. I mean, I might not agree with it, but I certainly have respect for someone if they want to do it that way. And there's always consequences for things. So sometimes people need to feel the consequences
Mm.
of certain things so that they can learn from it. So if you're not allowing them to go through with something that might not be the best thing, maybe that's robbing them of an experience they're supposed to have. So I always think, everything's happening as it is supposed to, and everybody's making their choices on what kind of experience they'd like to have, and it's not always just bad or good. So I love to say, like, go neutral, if it's triggering you and if you're getting really irritated by it, that's also something to reflect within yourself, is why do I feel the need to you know say this about, like, how wrong this
Mhm.
is and what's going on within me that is so strong that I need to, take a stance on this. So that would be where I would first start. Is it bothering you? And then secondly, like I always say, once you've chosen a direction for your life, you've made a decision on a way you'd like to go, then go neutral, because neutral is always where the Buddhists talk about this, like, neutrality is staying open to every possibility out there, because there's no right or wrong. It's everything is it just is, there's just possibilities. So it's up to you to choose what kind of experience or possibility you'd like to have. So but when we take a stance or we close ourselves off to something, and we're saying, oh no, this, I'm right and they're wrong, or vice versa, then we're not open to receiving information, opportunities, new connections in our life, all kinds of things. So, although, there are some things that you do want to I think would be good to make it. I call it a decision. I'm making a
Mm.
choice or a decision about something, and then I'm going to not, like, make others wrong about it and me right. You know what I mean? That's what going neutral to me means. And it takes a lot of discernment. It takes a lot of discernment,
Correct.
but you have to just kind of go go back and think, okay, what are my intentions behind this? What is my motivation? What's triggering me? And if you can reflect on the deeper aspects of why that's bugging you, then you'll find the answer, and it always relates. Um, a lot of times it relates back to our childhood, and we're playing out these subconscious stories with people that are now adults with us, and it's the same scenario, but it with different people. So that's another way to look at it too, and that's what I've used in my life, because when I do things like that, when I'm right about this is the way to do it. I used to do this with diet, with
Yeah.
nutrition, and there's so many different ways to do it. And it's frustrating, because you can look at somebody until you're blue in the face and tell them this is the diet, and they would still not believe you, and they'd want to do a different diet and think, oh no, this diet's the right diet. So who's right and who's wrong? I really
Yeah.
don't know. But I know what's right for me, and that's really all that matters. And then another person gets to decide, if that's right for them, or if something else is right for them. And if you're coaching them and guiding them through a process of discovering that, then you're giving them information on what you think works. But ultimately, it's up to them to decide what works for them. And so that's the hope that I have for all my clients as well. So that's what I would really just focus on, is like, what is coming up for you, right?
What's the potential responsibility for a fitness professional and helping to kind of raise the quality of our profession?
Well, I mean, I believe it would be to, like we mentioned earlier, is to start working on yourself. And it's not gonna happen overnight. This is gonna be take time, but start to really own the experience. Like, what kind of needs are you trying to get met through coaching? And
Mm.
is it something that you're doing because you want to learn? Are you curious? Are you excited for the experience? It could be both at the same time. But I would say really getting clear on why you're doing it, and not just doing it because, like, I remember when I started in coaching, in personal training, I was doing it because I was good at it, and,
Yeah.
and this is something that was easy for me. I'd been a gymnast for so many years, and I'd always, I'd done gymnastics coaching as well.
Yeah.
And I fell into it. I went to exercise science school for exercise science, and so it was really easy for me. And I thought later, I'm like, what did I go into that because it was easier because I really wanted to, and those are the
Yeah.
questions to ask is, and then from there, start to think about what you'd like to learn about that. Because like a fitness in itself there's many, many avenues and topics that you could go through with that. And my son, who just graduated high school, he wants to be a personal trainer now. And I told him, I said, there's so many options, way more than when I started. So it's a
Yes.
really great field to get into at this point, because like it is very, there's like you could become a shaman and be a fitness professional at this point. There's
True.
like so many
So
ways to
true.
go.
So
So
how do
it's
we
it's
tell
it's
people
exciting.
about that though? But see, like you're saying that, and I'm not sure a lot of people are knowing that they could do
Yeah.
both. How does that message get out further? That you could be a shaman and like I know that, but I don't think a lot of my colleagues know that. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think partly we're trained to take ourselves super seriously, especially
so serious.
so seriously. So when you can just start to not do that anymore and not worry about what people think and start to make mistakes gracefully and enjoy the process and then really just learn your own process really, then it'll pull you in certain directions and then you'll follow that. But until you really hone into your own intuition around that, it's going to be hard to know what direction to go into or what's available. I don't know. um I do know how I got involved with Paul Chek, but that was for me
Yeah.
what opened the gates to all this stuff in a way that I was really curious about. And I didn't even know it existed. I didn't even know someone like this existed who was offering this in fitness, but he was, and it was incredible. And he was really the only one that I knew of during that time. But fitness isn't just about being in the gym, and I think it's about really opening our mind to other ways of seeing this profession, because movement itself has been around forever, and we have the art of movement as well, so we could bring in the artist and the athlete parts of ourselves and bring them together to create a business that way, instead of just thinking of just the athlete. Like the athlete's wonderful, we have persistence, we have many wonderful attributes that the athlete brings. Competitiveness, may not need as much of that, but but also we forget about our creative side of that. And so the creativity, really tapping into your imagination and your creativity, yeah, I think has been lost somewhat in the fitness industry. So maybe if we can reignite that within ourselves, and we can see ourselves as so much more, there's more potential there. Because I do think like you said, Darian, it's very limited in how our perception of our field, right?
Yes.
And people just tend to like they don't go outside that box for whatever reason. I'm really not sure, but I thought, I'll bring a book into the fitness realm that talks about woo, because everybody's afraid to talk about woo.
Mhm.
And but it's fun, and everybody secretly knows how much fun this is, but why aren't we like acknowledging that? So for whatever, it and maybe it's because when we brought in the boot camp like mindset, it wasn't supposed to be fun anymore. Like
Yeah.
in the 80s we had all the aerobics and
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
then Jane Fonda, and it was a little bit more fun. And then it got not fun anymore, and it got really like serious. Now I think we're heading more into that joy, but more in a healthy way. So a way
Yeah.
we're not shaming ourselves. We're not trying to, look like the standard fitness person
Hmm.
or whoever we think we're supposed to look like. We're going to look like how we want to look like, and create that new reality. So I think it's really a matter of us tapping into our creativity in a way that we can create a new reality around this, because it's going to become something. I thought about this the other day too. I can see it becoming something so different than when I started.
Yeah.
I mean, I do remember beginning early on, I was like, this is boring. And so that's why I think I got caught up with the Czech Institute, because I
Yeah.
was just like, is this all there is? Like just getting on a
Yeah.
machine and counting reps and sets and ugh. So yeah. So I think there's going to be, because fitness is so much more than just the body. Like we're realizing it's harnessing the energy of the mind and directing it. And then you're learning how to listen to your intuition. I mean, what has a new thing that has come on the scene lately is media. Media has become a junk food, the junk food of the mind, right? And so we got to like evolve as well as trainers to bring all that other stuff in. And we're seeing, like, as technology grows, we're also going to have to change and shift our ways of helping people tap back into their natural selves, is the way I see it. And so with that, you got to be discerning with technology too. And I think that's another thing. It's not just junk food, it's actually your media too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when we
Yeah.
start delving into these other parts of ourselves, let's take, for instance, like spirituality, people make an association with religion to that. And they get, but it's also like
Yeah.
what has been their exposure to religion or spirituality. They may have a very positive or very negative connotation to that based off of their exposure to it. Religion is just one outlet of spirituality, one thing, and not necessarily bad. Again, depends on your vantage point and how it's been addressed to you. But I think we look at these things and then we go, oh, that's just weird stuff. That has
Yeah.
no place in this. And I always say this has everything to do with all of this, just as well as the mental health aspect of it and environmentalism as well for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, all of these things make up you as a human being. For some reason, we're like afraid to go there all the way. And I think also like
Yeah.
one of the things I do, my own personal thing is like when I go to conferences, I don't need another presentation on how to have better technique or tactical training. And I'm not, these things aren't bad.
Yeah.
But listen, I've been doing this most of my life. Like, I don't need more discussions about exercise physiology. Like,
Yeah.
I want to go to presentations that are about spirituality, compassion, empathy, the things that what's happening on the ground level for that. I don't need another white paper to look at. I got it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Totally. I'm
I
with
don't
you.
want to
I'm
attend
with
those
you.
other things. I don't want to
Yeah.
bounce around and like, it's like, I want to like, where are we headed? I want to be a part of those things. And
Yeah.
that's, which is why I'm speaking about compassion, how the fitness professional needs to learn how to become a more compassionate individual, work on the self first.
Yeah.
And with
Yeah.
that,
Because they need to know how to love
yeah,
themselves so they can teach other people how to love themselves.
it
It
doesn't
comes
matter
down
if
to
you know
that.
where everything, the origin and insertion of everything, if you're just bad with people. I mean, it really doesn't matter.
It's
It's
true.
really pointless,
I've seen some
honestly.
trainers that are, yeah, they just aren't people, right? And I'm like,
Right. You got to
why are
know
you
that
here?
about yourself though. Like you can't
Yeah.
go into, when I used to certify trainers to career college, I'd be like, listen, you have to know this. Like, is this your thing? Like personality wise,
Yeah.
we're on a spectrum of that, but like, dude, this is not for you. Like, I mean,
Exactly. You have to like relationships. It's really about
relationship
relationships. It
building.
comes down. Exactly. So what's your relationship like with yourself? What's your relationship
Yes.
like with your partner? What's your relationship like with your kids, your parents, all of these things? It all comes in, right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna translate into your relationship with your client too,
Yep.
so it's just a deeper awareness. And so if you as a trainer have that deeper awareness, now I'm not saying you got to know it all right out of the gate. Like, it's
No.
going to take experience. Then you're going to be, you know, uh, getting tuned into your intuition is really helpful, because then that can kind of take you in the direction you want to go in to learn what you want to learn when the time is right. But then beyond that, then you get to really guide your clients with a lot of awareness, which is
Yes.
super helpful for them, right? So, and also it's good for the trainer too, because then you understand a lot. Like, you've been down the road, many of your clients have been down already. You know the deal. And many of clients will come to you because you've been through it. And so you're
Yeah.
really helping your past self when your clients come to you. You're helping heal that with them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think that it just got so bland and boring for a while. And again, it's not that it's bad information. It's just
Yeah.
how much do we need to know about that? Like, I think there is something as you go, like some people don't really talk about this that much, but and Paul talks about this sometimes. And you get to a place with anything you do, really. It could be like you know, a Michelin star. Is it a Michelin
Yeah.
star
Michelin
cook or
star.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, chef. I mean, you could, you do it long enough, you're going to develop some kind of intuition, some kind of intuitive abilities around it. Like, I watch people move. I've probably watched people move for the past almost 20 years, almost every day for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours each day,
Yeah.
and it's like eventually you pick up on how to watch movement and what you can pick up on that. It's like,
Yeah.
it becomes just another ability that you have because you've seen so many people move. So you can start to decipher between, like you can read energy in the body and those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
it's just going to take experience, though. You have to give yourself the space to
Yeah.
learn and to grow that way too. So I don't think
Yeah.
we give ourselves enough of patience and space. We want to do it now, but we don't understand that, the journey to get there is where you learn all these things. It's how you
Yes.
integrate it. So
But
it's,
wouldn't it
it's
be great if, like, before you even got in the business, you were armed with all these tools? Like, if you were to take
yeah.
a course that was like the mentally well exercise professional, whatever, whatever courses, coping strategies for working with clients, things of that nature. You may not have the experience, but at least you have some knowledge of what it may be like and what things you could do to help arm yourself when working with people. But we don't do any of that. We want you to know about
No.
the Krebs cycle and phosphocreatine system. Again, not bad stuff, good stuff. But, like, I don't know, I've been a trainer for 22 years. It's really played almost no
Uh-uh.
significance in how well I've done as a trainer over the time,
Exactly.
like zero. But that is what is taught primarily in
Yeah.
schools, is you need to be a good biomechanist, motor learning person. Again, good stuff, but I'm not sure that makes you amazing at it being a trainer. I
I don't think it does either. I
really
think
don't
you
think it
can
does.
I think it's good for foundational, like you need the
Right.
foundation, right? I mean,
But
like
it
my
can't be
son who's
everything.
going to
That's what it
be
is, though. It's
right,
everything,
right.
like, in the school.
Exactly. But it's like at some point there's a stopping point and you got to develop other areas of
Yeah.
yourself. Like you can't, yeah. And I see that too. It's like, I don't know whether it's like just people want to just stay in their lane. They feel like they
Yeah.
can't go outside the box of
Yeah.
that. And I get it. It's a safety thing. Like you don't want to
Sure.
sound uncredible, like that you're not, you don't want people to not take you seriously. You don't want
Sure.
to seem like you're, crazy. But at the same time, like it's really interesting, we tend to separate this out in our minds. Is like we have all these indigenous cultures all over the world
Right.
who have been practicing this stuff forever. Like what, and we give a lot of merit to that. We put a lot of importance on that, but yet we don't like translate that into our lives because we
Yes.
haven't had any kind of ceremony. We've lost our that kind of thing, and the ceremony, rite of passage, those kinds
Yes.
of
Transitions in
very
life. Yeah.
important things.
So
We're
important.
even like so afraid of death now that we don't even want that to happen. But
It's
it's
crazy.
like it's like it has to, and
Yes.
there's a sacredness to all of it, and there's a reason why. So, but we have lost that knowledge, and I think that's a
Yeah.
big part of it too. Is we have, our eh, we're just too intellectual at this point. Like there has
Yeah.
to be a connection with the head and the heart, and that comes through the intuition, and starting to listen to your higher self, cleaning up your consciousness, going through your subconscious stories and resolving that trauma around those. And then once you can start to do that, then that opens the door up to your higher self aspects of that, and your true connection to the divine and source is what I
Yeah.
call it. And that's what these people are doing in these indigenous cultures all over the world, is they're still doing these things, where they're honoring, their themselves, the earth, everything. They're appreciating it and
Yeah.
they're blessing it,
Exactly.
and there's something to that, but
Oh, there's
we
a
don't
lot to
do
it.
that. We
There's a
don't do
lot
it.
to it.
And that's even something I've started teaching my clients is like, okay, it's not a religious thing at all. It's just like, what would it, start to experiment with blessing your food, or it's an appreciation kind of practice here. Is we're beginning to slow down, we're becoming present, even just being present with your food. Because I found so many people they're not present even with the food that is sitting in front of them. They're
Yeah.
trying to eat it really fast, or they're eating on the go, or they're eating whatever is available instead of just sitting with it and blessing it, and appreciating it. Wow, this is amazing. It's whatever you want to say. I just bless my food, and I imagine like a nice, beautiful white light coming in and just expanding out and filling it with love,
Yeah.
and then you're bringing it into your body in a very graceful way, rather than like a lot of people who experience food sensitivities, they might have a lot of anxiety around the food they're eating, and this translates into how you assimilate it and digest it. So even just thinking of little things like that, little ceremony that we can bring into our life on a daily basis, I think is super important. But we have to start being open to that. That is also realizing that what we've been doing isn't working. It's
Yeah.
not working. More isn't better. So let's try something different. Right.
That's the crazy thing in our business is like on a conservative level, 15 to 20% of the population exercises regularly. That's conservative. And that's been like that for 30 years. Something is not working
Right.
for that. And you're right about the ceremony thing is interesting to me because I feel like we're just trying to obliterate ceremony in our society. When I think very ancient people realized the transitions in life are really important.
Yes.
Honor that you're moving from one phase to the next, and to slow down and recognize that and move towards this new beginning. And it's like we're just trying to fast forward through that, or we're trying to just deny the reality we're in and live in a different reality that is just highly stimulated through the internet. So we're just like trying to, and then death, if you're really young, that's for someone else. Yeah. That's like, oh, that'll be cured at some point, like that. That's not for me. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like when I was in my 20s, I took a death and dying course in college, and it was awesome because you have to confront these realities. It's 100%. It's like, there's not like one, it's 100%.
Yeah.
Like,
we're all going to die.
It's like one of the most sure things that, and you're going to get taxed every year, man.
Exactly.
You ain't getting out of that.
That's so true. I wish that wasn't the case. But,
I know.
Maybe we can like change that reality. I don't know. But if you
that could have some hope. The other one is no hope.
Yeah. Well, I think we die from our physical bodies die.
Yeah, of course,
and then we are, our essence, our soul, so to speak, is going to go to different dimensions of reality. That's just what I've seen in my own experience with after my dad passed away.
Yeah.
I just, he showed me in my dreams all these different dimensions of reality that he was going to. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And you could chalk it up to, oh, that's my imagination. That's my dreams playing things out. But what I really felt was that he was trying to tell me that like, it's not, it's our bodies are vehicles of perception in this dimensional reality, but there's other realities out there. So it's not death as we think it is, and that's how I see it. But so I think that's why a lot of cultures have made death sacred, because it's a passing on. It's like it's similar to giving birth to a baby. You're helping them pass on to the next dimension of reality. So, but we just haven't been taught that that's the case. Yeah.
It's funny, like, right. It's like two fitness people talking about consciousness, spirituality, consciousness living beyond our physical self. And like, if we said this like 10, 15 years ago, they'd be like, you're crazy. People have been like, no, we're going to talk about metabolism and hormones. And we're like, yeah, but the world's moving on in a sense of like recognizing that, man, I really think people are wired. There's this frequency that people are wired to believe in things greater than themselves, be very emotional beings. Just that we've spent this weird last hundreds of years, like trying to get people to not be emotional, like just tamp it down. Dads who don't say I love you, all this weird, crazy stuff. And it's like, these are natural blossomings of humans. For
Yeah.
some reason, we're like, that's not cool. But I think that's
Well,
changing.
it's the feminine, it's the feminine aspect of all of us, like whether we're a man or woman or
Yeah,
anything
exactly.
else, it's just like we are, it's the divine feminine. And that's what is the unknown. It's the, it's the emotional aspect, it's the chaos, and to some extent it's also the void, it's that space in between, that we take for ourselves to create opportunity, to create, all these beautiful things in our lives. And so, um, by becoming more present, you get more familiar with the divine feminine, and uh, more comfortable with the unknown. Because I think that's a big part of it. I just think people really have a hard time with the unknown, and we want to control all the aspects of that, which is impossible. But yet we still try, and that creates a lot of anxiety that could actually affect your metabolism. It can do
Yeah,
all kinds of things to your physiology, but yet we focus on the physiology, which is important too. I'm not
of
saying not to look
course.
at the physical. And at the same time, I've seen a lot of great results from people just, changing their spiritual wellness, their spiritual fitness, and going about it that way too, and just cleaning up the consciousness, the subconscious stories, and those things that are really creating a lot of anxiety, which create physical, issues too. So, uh, yeah, I think we're going into a new time where people are calling it, we're going into the age of Aquarius. So that's a very, and I'm believing that, wow, this
Yeah,
is
this
this
is
is real, because I'm feeling like there's some major shifts. And I have a totally different perspective that I did, like, I don't know, 10 years ago.
same here.
I mean, it's so many things have changed. So, and yes, we can talk about these kinds of things more comfortably now, because I think a lot more people are open to it, because
Yeah.
we've had, many upgrades in our consciousness, recently, which has been great. So I hope we can continue on with this, and I think, trainers will also, you know, it, it was, really interesting that all the trainers were kind of out of their jobs during this time,
Yeah.
but it was good for kind of like losing that part of themselves, their
Hmm.
identity there, and creating something different, which I think we
Yeah.
needed badly. So, it was in a way a good thing,
I think
to
it's like,
reinvent themselves.
yeah, we're trying to reimagine our profession in many ways. It's
Yeah.
good timing for that. And as much like you talk about consciousness, like Dr. Robert Hoffman, he is reimagining consciousness to other scientists. Whereas the hard problem of consciousness has always been neurons, synapses, and we're going to find it.
Yeah.
There's this physical object, and he had come to the conclusion is like, I think we're looking at this wrong, that consciousness creates the brain doesn't create consciousness for that. And
Right.
whatever you see, you made up. You saw it. It became real
Yes.
because you saw it, not because your brain and the synapses told you. But that consciousness is infinite, and your body is a finite situation. And it's funny, like listening to him talk, because he doesn't like that he believes this. He struggles
Yeah.
with it, because he's like, this is opposite of what we think hard science is about. But he said the evidence is too clear to have other opinions about this. And I think even science is going through like weird things, like you said, what is even the science people are talking about? It's an exploration to different ideas. It's not like set.
Yeah.
Science is only as good as the
No.
time it's in.
Yes.
Science was
Exactly.
way different before. I mean, ever heard of Galileo? I mean,
Right.
things change,
Yeah.
man. Things change. It's not absolutes. Like, we need to
Exactly.
start looking at things as being more malleable. And I think that's what we're reimagining. We're becoming more malleable about what it is we're actually in. We've been in it a long time. We're like, what are we actually doing? Like,
What is this place?
what is this
Like
thing
that's
I've
what
been
I'm
doing
thinking
for
lately.
20 some
Wait a
years?
minute.
Like,
Where am I exactly?
am I actually like a counselor? Like, am I actually like a shaman in some way? a therapist in some version,
Yes,
am I a
the answer is
mediator?
yes.
Am I a mediator? Like, yes,
Yeah,
check.
exactly.
Like,
Exactly. You really can become whatever you'd like to become, I think. And it's reality is malleable, and that's what I've learned too. It's
yes,
um eh, yes, and I've heard other people talk about becoming. That's what they mean when they say that you're the conscious creator of your reality. So when you can do it with intention and awareness, then you are literally creating your reality. Cause like
right.
you said, like you're the observer.
You're the
Whatever you
observer.
observe is what, gets created. Right. And like,
Right.
so for example, we're focusing on all this negative stuff all the time, even though we're like, oh, we don't want that.
Yeah.
But that gets created in your reality because that's what you're focusing on. It's very simple actually. And it makes sense to me that they would start proving that to be true. And
Yeah.
but it's maybe it wasn't just we couldn't see it before for whatever reason, and now we're seeing it, because we're in a different place too. So
Yeah. We
there's
are.
many ways to look at it for sure.
There's been a very enlightening conversation.
Thank
I
you.
never know where this goes. When I talk to people, I just let it happen, man. It's like, hey, we're gonna talk. You
Yeah,
know,
I love it.
it's unscripted. It just goes where it goes. Where we see it going is where it goes. So
Yeah,
I
it
really
was
appreciate your
wonderful.
time. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
tell
Thanks for
everybody
having
how
me
to
on.
get your book and check, the reality of seeing you and
Yeah.
connecting with you. How can they become part of your reality?
Yes, I have a book called Finally Thriving, Your Guide to Empowered Wellness. My website's finallythrivingbook.com. So you can purchase the book there, as well as I have a program that I'm starting in August. That's the Finally Thriving program, and it's a 12-week course and coaching program. So it's a group coaching program. We're going to go through some of the most important aspects of the book that I feel like would be really great for people to integrate and experience. And so some of these deeper aspects of really creating a practice, like what we talked about today, like how do people integrate it? Well, you create a daily practice for yourself. And what we're going to do during these 12 weeks is slowly, peel away the layers, clean up our consciousness. And then also I'm going to expose my clients to these tools that I use all the time, and they can create their own practice from this. So it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be the most fun program I've ever offered here, because I thought like what we were talking about today, like when are we going to have fun, right? And when are we going to make that like important in our lives? And that's everything, actually. And what we're realizing is the joy and the fun in life, if you can get to that point, that's what we all crave. And that's important. But yet we put that on the back burner because we have all this work to do first, right? And so, why can't we have fun while we do our work, or while we're
Yeah.
having, experiencing our lives? I think we shouldn't have to put the fun on the back burner. So how can you make the wellness journey for yourself really enjoyable, bringing the joy back into it for yourself, and not making it about drudgery or suffering, or you have to push yourself, no pain, no gain kind of mindset. How do we switch gears of that to a more powerful way of creating the body and the life we really want, which is through the divine feminine, like I talked about, and through a way of becoming, and being, and then pairing that up with your inspired action. So that's what I teach my clients. And as well, I still do my one-on-one fitness coaching with people, and they can always contact me. I see people all over the world, and they can contact me to do a free initial consultation for that as well. But those are the main things I have coming up. I have my, podcast, Integrate Yourself. And yeah, that's about it.
That's
Yeah, it's
about it.
enough. It's enough stuff. I do have an audiobook that should be coming out this month in June. So I haven't heard from them yet, but hopefully it's coming out
Okay.
this month.
All right.
Sometimes it takes 3 weeks, sometimes it takes a week with Amazon
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Wow, what a pleasure. Always a pleasure to speak to another fitness professional. You never know, like 20 years from now, all these interviews will be with shamanic personal trainers and stuff. And I mean, like, It'll be
They're always,
very
they're all going to
different.
be shamans. We need more shamans in the world.
I know. I actually agree with that. I think so for
Yeah.
sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Allison Pelot. Is it Pelot?
It's close. Pelot. The T is
Pelot.
silent.
The T
Yeah.
is silent. How would I know that?
You wouldn't. Nobody
Allison
does.
Pelot.
It's French.
Yeah. Thank you, Allison. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank
Right.
you, Darian.